brief, but it tells a lot.
Mm-hmm, it does.
Oh dear, can I borrow a pen from someone? Does
Hey, you
anyone
guys
have
found
an
the-
extra pen?
The number button.
Does anyone have an extra pen?
A what?
Extra pen? Oh, I think I do.
You just, I don't know what's, I don't know, they usually have 15 or 20 or something.
Renewal pen.
Oh.
Here we go.
Who's
In the back.
talking?
We put one in her hand.
She's got one.
Thank you.
I need one.
Hey, it doesn't write, but you.
I think that one turns. Oh, I have an extra red one.
Okay, that works too.
If that doesn't work, like I said, here is red.
I'm sure. Oh, yeah.
Wait for it for 2 hours.
I usually have my Renewal insurance level.
Come on down and we'll throw you one out there for
You know what I
I
use
just
more
looked
than
at it.
anything?
Yeah,
And
then,
all of a sudden I realized,
Is
God,
this
it's supposed to be in the thing at 4 o'clock.
The real estate?
35 or something.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's just too many things.
okay, it's 5:30. This is March the 14th, 2019. It is 5:30 p.m. and this is the regular work session of the Trinidad Urban Renewal Authority. Item number 1 on the work session agenda this evening is to interview and speak to two applicants that have shown interest in being on the Trinidad Urban Renewal Authority Board. I expect probably this is a motto maybe here shortly.
Sure. She has withdrawn her name.
She has
So
I
begun.
got an email from her this afternoon.
Oh, okay. Okay,
So now you're down to 2.
well now, that being said, Mrs. Leone called me this afternoon at 3 o'clock and she indicated there was some miscommunication and she did have a, she didn't get a notification actually until today at around 2 o'clock, and she already had another meeting scheduled that began at 4, and she didn't think that she would be able to make tonight's meeting. She didn't think she'd get here in time. So what we can probably do then is take that one forward to next month. So we have,
And I apologize, I don't know what happened. I specifically typed her email address into the email and like Outlook decided it didn't want to do it or something because it's not there.
And since we have 2 vacancies and 2 interested
applicants.
parties, if nobody has objections, could we just move this to city council? And just go ahead and forward it to city council?
That would be my suggestion.
Especially if you know both people.
well, yes and no, because if you read the resolution, which, you know, is somewhat.
Pretty vague.
It is pretty vague and somewhat ambiguous. It does require that an applicant attend a meeting. Commissioner, this will be your 2nd meeting, so you were more
I'll
than
take both
qualified.
spots, that's okay.
So my recommendation is, because we want to get at least the next one filled, and we've already had our session with Commissioner, or how would you want us to refer to you, Commissioner Lopez or Mr. Lopez?
Luis is.
Or Luis. Okay, since he was here last month, and I'd like to see us get as many as possible, because as short as you're running, you always run these possibilities of not making quorum. If it's to everybody's agreement, I could formulate the letter tomorrow, send it to city. Will you be able to get it on Tuesday's agenda, or is it too late?
Let me just see, I'll send Audra an email ahead, so she's got a heads up and see if we can have
I
it.
think you get it
It's
this
not
week
any, well,
on
'cause
the
it,
agenda.
yeah, because it does come under new business on the regular agenda night. We can talk about it then. But you've got a few minutes to think about it, so you know, if we can do that, and we'll get on with the first one.
Okay.
The elevator down.
That was somebody going down, okay.
So, okay, with that being said, then we don't have anybody that we can speak with their interview. So then I guess we're going to move on to item number 2, the acquisition and demo program. At last month's work session, we kicked it around a little bit, but at that particular time, we also commissioned Commissioner Valani to do some I don't know, did we commission you, did you volunteer? How did that work out?
How
But in
did
any
that-
case, you did provide us with a lot of information, here recently that, I'll let you elaborate on what it was and then we can go from there, with further discussion.
Okay.
Thank you for your hard work.
Yes.
Thank you. You're welcome. I have quite a few notes. Do you want to go over them during this work session? Yes?
Well, I think the crux of what it was is we were trying to determine what the purpose of the program will be and what segment of the population or what segment of the home buying population that we would want to serve by entering into this program, should we enter the program.
Okay.
And I think we talked with some detail about, you know, that the pricing of the housing that is available or not available, probably more not available. And that was where we decided that maybe we didn't have sufficient information to maybe go any further, and that's why you said you would take that on and get us some information, which you have done.
Okay, so what I understood my task was, is to look at the real estate market, bring back some information, and to give the commission some perspective on that. The second task I understood was to look at the document itself and to look at the language in which that was used in the document and to see how it would fit. So I have both of that. So with regard to the information that I sent you, I do need to say that there is a correction. It's a typo, and it says homes from 74K to 200,000, and that's where the criteria was set. I did do a reevaluation, another look at what's happening now, because after all this, as I told Mr. Sun, that this was basically a snapshot. So today I went in to the MLS, because that's really the only concrete way that I have that it's to be able to give you some data that is accurate. I excluded from all of this the 35-acre plats that have homes on it, land. I also excluded anything that was outside the city proper, like for instance Cokedale or Boncargo or places like that, because I thought it would give us a better understanding. So if you were to look into the MLS, you would see that there are 230 listings. But we have to bear in mind that includes Huerfano County, which is Walsenburg, Levita, Cuchara, and there's even some Pueblo thrown in there for whatever
I saw
reason.
that in Rye.
And also in Rye and Gardner. So I narrowed the field, and today, in city proper, there are 74 homes on the market between the 74K and $200,000 range. It came out to be approximately the same, with a one home difference. There are 26 then homes. There are 74 homes, in the city proper. 26 of them are within our criteria of 74K to 200,000. And 3 of those homes are below 100,000, and 23 are within our target range. I didn't go through and reevaluate the spread, but what it comes down to is nothing's changed down below. And I think for me, Mr. Sun sent me the FHA or HUD, the median income, and thank you for that. That was really a lot, gave me a lot of information, and certainly a springboard to find information. And but nothing's really changed too much. It's really when we're talking about this document or some of some other aspects, we need to understand the difference between median and mean. And is everybody okay with that?
Huge difference.
There's a huge difference between that. And they talk about median income. And that, and basically what it says is they set a mark like this, and they say half of the prices are here, correct me if I'm wrong, and half are down here. Whatever you're talking about, whether it's sales or listings or prices, sales of home, then median means, so it doesn't give you what that spread is. It doesn't give you the average, whereas the mean or the average, I think it's easier to say average than mean, but it's then the aggregate number divided by the units within a group.
Add up all the prices and divide by the number.
And divide by the number, basically. And then you get an average or a mean. So when I got that all out, so when we're looking at this, then everything is done in median comparisons and median property values. And so today I went in and I thought, well, has anything changed with the flux as far as what I have here, and very little. But suppose we took the three comparisons for income, and we added those together and divided it by the number, then we would get an average income of $47,064, which kind of bears out what I've seen everywhere else. So, and I looked on Flex today. The average sale price is $180,103, but the mean still remains at $144,200. So I don't know. The relative part of all of this is that when we said that we wanted to go into that range of 100 between 100 and 200,000, and probably stay in that 150 range at homes that we're looking at, or it bears it out that's where the need, that's where most of the activity is in the real estate market. And that's where the homes are being sold, is right in that area. So that explains this. Do you have any questions about that?
Could you repeat that?
Pardon me?
Could you repeat all?
One thing
There will be a test on median or mean.
One thing to consider with mean, one of the problems with it is a few high or a few low-priced homes could skew the number greatly. And I think that's why they use median, because then half of the values are below it, half of the values are above it.
Right.
But it's not telling you, it's not giving that average number you want, but averages work better when things fall into a norm. And I don't know if we have a norm. We have some houses that are way high.
Right.
We have some that are low. But I don't know how many of them are really that low. So I'm thinking we're skewing higher.
Well, there are only, the low homes start at 74.5, I think. And there are only three from 74 to 100 that are on the market within the city. I mean, within the city proper. The 26 that fall between 100 and 200, well, there's 26. The balance of which then goes from 200 to 400 to 500 actually. And that spread is way,
One of the things to really consider with this program, though, that's a key to it, is this is not a program for selling houses. This is a program for determining whether a house is in a condition to be torn down.
correct.
Or somebody wants to salvage it and bring it back to life. So they're pretty low value homes.
Well,
I mean, a
so,
$200,000 home, you're not gonna knock down and go put up another one. Some people
No.
will. Typically, that's not gonna happen.
it's not gonna happen, but for instance, one, and I can't give you all the details to it, but the home that I listed down here at 169.9, that's a listing that I have that will close next week, and then I can, it's pending, what I explained is pending. But to give you some idea of what all this means, or the market means, and it isn't, I understand what you're saying, but sales will help us understand, I think, too, a little bit more, or help us with this program. This particular house, the person that finally, the buyer, the agent for the buyer said to me, we have looked at 14 homes in this price range, or lower between this range that between 120 and 170. And he said the condition of which was, you know, they all needed a lot of work. And so that's kind of where we're at, in a sense, is looking at homes that, you know, need to be torn down or refurbished, right?
And well, what I think an advantage of going to this program is this one, for the most part, would replace our ADO program.
Would replace our
ADO.
Anti-dilapidation.
Because it gives not only the promotion to do something to a house, it has the stick approach too if nobody wants to listen to you. So
I think that's really great. I think this program has to me, after reading it, has three-pronged approaches, which is probably the ADO, the rehab, and then the build. And then it's listed there, whether we do all three or not. But it certainly addresses all of that.
right. And hopefully we can actually, the ADO program worked really well with the people who were willing to work with us. But the ones that wouldn't respond to certified letters, the ones that won't respond to phone calls, won't respond to you knocking on the door, you need something with a little bit more attention getting. And this program, I think, can get you there.
It does. I'm not sure, I have lots of questions with regard to the content in here.
Well, and this is strictly a draft. It's not intended to be adopted.
Yeah, that's a ways out before we're doing this. A lot, any questions and input are really necessary to, you know, and the information you just provided is an insight to what's out there, and if you wanted to, you know, to implement the program, says, you know, there's a need to be met by being able to go out, because if we were to undertake this, the general public is going to be asking, why do you do this? And we have to have some justification and figures like that to say is, you know, the availability of housing in the area is somewhat limited, if not stunted, by a lot of factors. And us going and taking action, we have some justifiable information on some of what you put out there.
In addition, we get phone calls on a regular basis from people saying, this house has not been occupied for 20 years, and now it's being occupied by transients and other people. What are you going to do about it? And one of the problems we run into is we can only deal with so many of these at a time. So when there's people who aren't responding to our attempts to reach them, all of the time's getting tied up with them. So you don't have time to get onto some of these other ones that are in equally bad condition. Kent Robinson's taken me on tours of the city. When you got somebody who knows what they're looking for, you can see a whole lot more than when you're just driving by. And he's far more aware of the ones that need immediate attention. So it's an interesting tour when you take it with someone who knows what they're looking for.
Well, if that stuff, you know, lots that you can't do with the ADO, but if it would graduate into us based upon the authority that we have through statutory for condemnation,
Right.
and taking, that would give us that opportunity to get at it faster and do some, provide resolution a lot quicker.
Exactly,
And-
that's
and-
the extra carrot and stick approach this thing has, that the ADO program, and ADO has worked with the people who want to work with us. And we have several properties that are in much better shape today than they were before. But we have a lot of people that just simply don't respond.
If you were to put a number on it, say 20 that were notified of that number, what would you say the percentages are that we're willing to work with and have not?
It's hard to say, because I think we've done a little bit of cherry picking. We picked the ones kind of that people are willing to work with us. So, I could get a list from Kent of the ones that he's been having trouble with. And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
I've got a question. Does this program include commercial properties as well?
The ADO program has been mostly aimed at residential, but it did include some commercial in the beginning. It seemed like the Urban Renewal Board and ADO were starting to compete with each other, so we kind of headed them in different directions.
But this program
This will pull it back
is
together.
aimed at residential.
This is, it can be, but it could be both. You could use this for anything you want to do.
But even without that, urban renewal still has that authority.
Yeah, and over all of them.
Yeah, we still have the authority to go after the commercial stuff if we,
And
aside from the ADO, we can.
And like I said, the ADO program doesn't have your authority. So, even though you really don't want to use condemnation and unless you just can't do anything else, having that capability makes a big difference.
Well, I think when you enter or make notification, some people, knowing the city can only go so far as it is, may not say, well, there's no teeth to it, so what's the difference?
Right.
If in fact then that becomes noticed by the Urban Renewal Authority, who does have it, and that, I don't know how you want notification, warning, whatever you put out there, is it, you do or you don't, maybe you have to use the dreaded C word and go
Well,
after it.
and that's why, if you look in the back in the appendixes where you've got the voluntary and the involuntary.
I like those. Those are, the forms are great. I mean, the way they structured that part.
Mhm.
Well, acquisition costs, which one might be, okay, you gotta look at it again, okay, what's cheaper to do, involuntary or voluntary? Because,
Cheaper is voluntary. I mean, if people are willing to work with you and we can maybe help them out a little bit. One of the things that I don't like doing is there's been times when we've forgiven dump fees for people demolishing a building. I'm okay with doing that, but if we do it, we have to make the landfill whole. We can't make the people who support the landfill pay for that. So when you let them dump it for free, the people who pay fees to the landfill are the ones who pay for that, and that's not right.
Yeah.
So there are ways around it, and we're trying to address those now. But that is one way to get a voluntary one, is you can work that with them on the costs of demolition. Because disposing of a property is expensive.
Not easy.
We've also worked with them in asbestos assessments, because those can be messy.
okay, with that information that Commissioner Belani has provided, and what we've been able to look at and just, and review in the Monte Vista, I hate to refer to Monte Vista.
Yeah,
because
it's been varied a lot.
Right, we'll call it the Trinidad now because
Sure.
It's a work in progress.
while there's been enough, that new wording has been changed enough, where tourist shows up enough, and I guess we can call it the Trinidad draft. What's the, at this point, what's suggestion from you, Greg, and commissioners, what we want to take as next step for our discussion? Because we're still a lot in the discussion stages. What do we want to do next? And thank you for your work. That was great information.
Well, I think it is really useful, because it gives you, on the ground experience of where we're starting to run into the places we gotta work on. But I would just suggest, similar to what we did with, I can't remember which one was the last one, but just pick 4 or 5 pages and go through them at a time instead of trying to pick on the document.
I had a thought about some of this as we go through these pages. There is a lot that's targeted. The language is targeted. That was the second part that you asked me to look at, was language.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it targets buzzwords like affordable housing, low to moderate income, things like that. And we kind of talked about looking at homes in that 100 to 150 range, somewhere in there. So, to me, as we go along here, it makes a difference to me for us to define, for instance, what does moderate mean to us in this community.
Low to moderate is not the price of the house, that's income of
No,
the people who
I know,
qualify.
I know that, yes, Greg, I understand, that's low to moderate income. But it also says in there the use of modest homes. What is a modest home? What would we define as a modest home? So I think some definition of terms.
I agree, that's very much needed. I left some of that terminology in here from the Monte Vista one because I wanted to encourage some discussion, because I took out all the stuff that related to CDBG grants. Because we can work with those if you want to in the future, but they have a heavy administrative load that comes with them.
Well, even, there's a lot of things in here that I thought, oh my goodness, are we going to work with, nonprofit agencies and do agreements with them and do, we're going to do deed restrictions, we talked about that. Mm-hmm. But, what does that look like, and are we going to assign these to there's a lot in there that we need to go through, but.
I don't know, the only nonprofit in town that we could even begin to work with is the Housing Authority, and I don't think they want to touch single-family housing. So we could take out reference to that because we don't have a Habitat for Humanity. That would be another option.
Right.
The advantage of dealing with a nonprofit is then you're just handing it off and they take care of it after that. But if you don't have that relationship, this board and the city take on the full load of everything, which we can do. It just limits how many we can do at a time.
Right. Now it was interesting, but I think that as we go through it, we really need to define what that means to us in this location.
Yeah, one of the things that we've discussed a lot of times, and might have to talk about this in the budget process, but I don't know if any of you attended the meeting we had here several months ago. There were a whole bunch of housing agencies here from the federal government and the state. It was really a good meeting. But the problem is, even though they can help people of low to moderate income get houses, the nearest office people can go to get help is, I think, Frisco, something like that. Mm-hmm. It's a ways. And so the people who are in that income category, how do they even get there? And what they suggested is we need somebody here dealing with housing if we're going to make a big dent in housing. And that might be something we end up creating through economic development, because if we aren't dealing with housing, we're going to be struggling with economic development.
Now, do we intend to leave this as referencing low to moderate income, or will it just be strictly moderate?
If you can get someone of low income in a house, I don't know why you wouldn't make that a goal. it would be nice.
Well, one of the things that, I mean, I plowed through a lot of statistics and for Los Angeles County, and the average income for a teacher is $38,000. Okay, and so, I mean, where does that fit?
It depends a lot on how you want to define it. I think Monte Vista says they deal with everybody up to 80% of moderate income. So if you think moderate income is based on number of people in the household.
Right.
So if you have 3 in the household, it's somewhere near 60? Is that what that was?
Yeah, I think it was, like, you know, I
So
dealt
if-
mostly
so
with
if you
1 and
say-
2.
So if you say 80%, it's what, 50, 48?
48?
48. Yeah, and it is based on the number of people in the household with an income.
No, just how people in the household, so it includes kids. So the more people that you're supporting with that household, the higher that number goes up, that threshold.
Okay, yeah, we're talking about 2 different things, yes. So, the other thing that is really interesting to me is that I've talked to 2 lenders and in Trinidad, and even somebody with an income of between $40,000 and $45,000 might be able to qualify for a $150,000 home, depending on of course, their debt to income ratio. And so, you know, when we're dealing, I mean, I'm not arguing with you in terms of low income. My question would be is, how do we help that middle?
Well, I think we need to help both. Affordable housing is something people mess with all the time. Affordable housing by a federal standard means that you pay no more than 30% of your income. And it doesn't matter what your income is. If your income's $2,000 a year, you don't pay more than 30% of that. So it's a heavily federally subsidized program in most cases. But these federal agencies that came here know how to run those programs. So there's some people who you could get a low-income person into a house, they'll pay no more than 30% of their income, and the federal government makes up the difference. In some cases, that ends up being rental property. You just don't know for sure. When I was with Habitat for Humanity, because most all of the cost was donated labor, we could put a low-income family in a 1,000-square-foot home for $200 a month, brand new home. So, I mean, it's amazing.
We had Habitat for Humanity. I don't know how many homes they actually built, but I saw quite a number of them.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
You built like about 5.
The biggest challenge with them is even raising the $60,000-$70,000 it takes in hard cost to build a house takes a long time in a community this size. Raising that money is not easy.
You know, that's interesting to me because I know of 2 homes that were Habitat for Humanity that went into foreclosure. Is that correct? I thought it was 3, but I know for sure 2. And so, you know, you question then if they have sustained, if they can sustain.
Well, the biggest problem with Habitat houses is, like a lot of other programs, is the only way they really work is if you have an active chapter, because the requirement of Habitat is partnering with these families and providing them a social bond and background and support in the community. Well, if the local affiliate disappears, who's providing that? You know, you're doing budget lessons, you're doing how to show up for work lessons, you're doing all sorts of other things to help the family survive in this house. And if you have to foreclose, it's Habitat that's foreclosing, it's not a bank.
Yes, I know.
And I think I mentioned at the last meeting, Habitat creates 2 mortgages for every house. One is the hard money mortgage and the other one is the market mortgage. And the longer you're in, the closer they get, but they close on each other. So if you lose the house in the first 3 or 4 years, you don't get any money out of that house. Not the people who want to sell it, or the people who get foreclosed on, or anything like that. It's too bad that occasionally happens, but they're no different than any other person. They foreclose on lots of houses today.
Well, I think the first thing we gotta do, this is foremost in my mind, is we gotta identify a funding source first. I mean, that's relative to everything, is before we can venture out into anything to say, this is, we have an idea of what needs to be, what we need to entertain out there, but I think number one, we gotta determine what funding source we can use to be able to implement the program.
Well, if this program, if we fold ADO into this program, right now we're funding that program with $100,000 a year. And most of that's for demolition and asbestos stuff. But I know that the council really wants to deal with housing issues, because they know you can't bring any people to town if you don't have any housing. And we also need to have housing in the price range of the people who are working here. There's a full range.
So that being the case, but I mean, $100,000, while it is a lot of money, it's not a lot of
It's not a
money.
lot.
So we need to see if there's anything out there, CDBG grants or whatever it is, and, obviously the less complicated the better, but sort of get an idea of what those sources might be, because I think we wanna be able to, once you get the ball rolling, you're probably gonna wanna go big. I mean, you're gonna have several sites to be able to create, so I mean, well, like I say again, the $100,000 is a lot of money, but, it could be very limited, maybe down to one project, depending on what it is.
Well, I don't know how they deal with housing issues like this, but like DOLA even has created a program to invest up to $12,000 to renovate trailer homes, each trailer home. So, and they've never, in the experience they have so far, they've never gone to 12, it's usually in the 9 or 10 range. But they totally transform a trailer house. And so, for that type of program, you're keeping people in housing that may end up on the street eventually because they lose their housing. So these stopgap programs that keep people in housing is huge.
In my wanderings, I came across these little Katrina cottages that they're now putting together, and I thought, oh my gosh, that is something that they're modulars, and I noticed in this program they do include modulars.
And we also have, whether they're city-owned or county-owned, I don't know who owns all these properties, but there's a lot of vacant lots that we could even put houses on, where we don't have to take one away.
Actually, Turner owns several lots.
We own 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But we can get far more active with that. Talking to Tara a long time ago, I can't remember when, we were throwing around the idea of how to get the building trades program going again, and coming up with a program where they start building houses again, and we use those for selling. I think there's real value in something like that. We would start growing some general contractors and carpenters and plumbers and electricians, and the trades would start filling in again.
But that's the good part of it, but the bad part of it is that's for the long haul.
Yeah.
And that, if we're looking to see anything in the not too distant future, that one's out there, but it's gonna take, by the time they even initiate it and get it all together, because
It's years down the road.
Yeah, I remember the houses when they did have the program at the college, and because they were students earning the stuff, it took a long time to build a house.
Well, if you want, I gotta call our DOLA rep anyway. I could just see if there's something out there. I went to the small cities housing conference last year. They had a lot of good ideas. And I think it's worth pursuing some of them.
That's the part that I'm, interested in first, and as we work this along, because once we get it to where we think we want it, we put together a program, we got people to finance it. And that's a concern for me.
If we go after grant money, that could change a lot of what
Right.
this document's gonna contain.
Yeah, I think we need to figure out where we are and, in terms of moderate or low to moderate or wherever we are, and then when we see a grant, well, it is gonna determine a lot of, the grant will determine a lot of what we can do too.
Most
Or we-
grants
or
you get
we-
though are going to be low to moderate at best. They,
My question would be, Greg, is that if we go after a grant that says low to moderate, but we decide as a commission that we wanna stay in the moderate, to lean heavily into a moderate range, what would be, how does that?
chances are that would all have to be funded locally.
Even if you, so you would,
You wouldn't be able to look to grants for that. Like for instance, in order to even apply for a CDBG grant, you would have to do a survey, and at least 51% of the people in the serviced area have to be low to moderate income, living in it.
but my question, that
And
range.
a lot of people don't like to answer that question.
Oh, they don't, I'm sure, but even if you say the low to moderate, how about if it ends up being more moderate than it is low? Do they have a percentage, usually in those types of grants, that say a certain percentage has to be low, a certain percentage has to be moderate?
No, I'm pretty sure it's a simple majority has to be in that category.
Alright.
So, however, moderate is going to fall into the category of that. For a 3-person family, 48 to 50, somewhere in that range, I would guess. Although I've seen numbers lower than that around here. Low income, I'm not sure you almost need a habitat kind of program to service low income people. I don't know how someone in a typical situation making $10,000-12,000 a year can afford a house. That's what you're in the low to very low income with that one. I think pure low income is probably in the 20s, I would guess.
Yeah, well, I had some of that information.
The lender, the lender will make that determination at that point is, if it's at the way low of the spectrum, probably not going to get to borrow money anyway.
Well, unless they're using one of these federal programs. They do create those, they lower those thresholds a lot when they throw money in them. And so if we do something close to Monte Vista and say we work at 80% of low to moderate, we could even say we'll work with anybody up to 140% of low to moderate. Then you're talking, then you're qualifying more people, but they're going to be a different program they fall under, and it's probably more locally funded.
Well, probably the existence and or the success of the program is going to, I guess, depend on the a funding source and the parameters that they put out. I think that's going to be one of the steps that we have to follow. Obviously, on the assumption that we can get all that to happen, we need to perfect the document.
But banks around here, savings loans, they use FHA, but I don't know how many other programs they use. and there's a bunch of them. There were 8 people at this table, and they all ran different programs.
Yeah, we don't use it, Jim.
Shafa even has programs you can get into for housing. And it's not just tax credits, they do other things too.
So what do we wanna take away from this today? What's our next step?
I'd like to have us work through this draft and
Okay.
come up with one that works for us.
Okay.
If you want to deal with some of these low-income grant programs, though, we might have to put some of the Monte Vista language back in here, because it's going to start ruling policy.
Okay.
And so just be aware of that when you involve a federal program, it's gonna change it. Right now, I took all that stuff out, thinking it would be mostly a local program.
So do we want separate sessions for working through this document?
It might not hurt, it's not horrible long. I think the index makes it a little longer, but the program itself isn't terrible. 15 pages or so.
Of which a lot of them don't need to be touched.
Yeah.
Some pages will be relevant no matter what.
So about 20 pages, give or take. So it's more a matter of how many do you want to give a goal to get through in the evening.
Well, I've got another way to handle it is why don't we, with those numbers that we are at this point, we assign so many pages to each and then,
Or if everybody wants to go through the document and mark it up and get me a copy and we'll just mark up this one.
we'll do it that way. I used the word in here one time, cannibalize, and I got I got rid.
And really, the exhibits take up quite a few pages.
They
Yeah,
do.
they do.
Okay, well, then why don't we do that? And can we do that, can you have your edits available to Greg prior, like 3 weeks from now, so we can have it ready for us for agenda when we come in here, what is it, April, what? Our next meeting will be April.
It's a little later in April.
Okay, so if, for my edification here, so then are we going to lead in?
11th.
April 11th.
April 11th will be our next meeting.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
So then have them to grade by what, April 4th? When do you want?
Soon as I can get them, the better. It makes it easier to.
Early April. As early in April as you can, like April Fool's Day, as I'm looking at it.
Now, how are we gonna divide this up?
Well, I think we'll all just hit the document, all pages of it.
Okay.
Mark it all up and then get it to Greg.
And if you want to eliminate some of the terminology that's in there, or if you want to suggest other words, that's fair game too. Like I said, this is just a draft. I went through Monte Vistas. I took out a lot of the references to things that are driven by federal grants.
I have a question that might just be indicative of my stupidity, and that's where there are references to CFR. What code is that referring to?
That is federal rules. So you have federal law passed by Congress, and then you have the rules passed by housing.
If you get on the internet, you
HUD,
can get.
Housing and Urban Development. If you put in CFR and the number, it'll come up.
Yeah.
And Greg, after Tuesday's meeting, if we get on the agenda to confirm me, could you forward that document?
Oh, I can forward it to you right
It's
away.
not, okay, it's not privy to the board.
No, this is just a,
Give me a head start.
sure.
Or when you're bored, when you're not busy.
Yeah, when you're bored.
Nothing better
Okay, so on that, the take on that is that we will all review that, make our edits, and get it back to Greg in electronic form or whatever, in very early April, so we can have something to work with at our next meeting, April 11th, 5:30 p.m.
Okay.
Okay, moving on from that item, we'll go to item number 3 on the work session, items for future work session agendas. One thing I would like to have, Greg, is an inventory of those. I think we've got 4 parcels of land on that side of town, right? You saw them, you already identified. I need to know what they
They're
are.
mostly out there, by where we sold that lot to,
Ray Durant.
uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how usable they are, but I know and somebody, if they're not usable, they might be desirable to people that they buy them to, although they have to be get out. Anybody else have anything they would like to have on? There was one other thing that dawned on me when I was looking through, because I actually printed a copy of the bylaws too, which I will give to Luis. We adopted last month. Something on there that maybe, to make those official, do we need to have some kind of, something that says that we adopted those and have it as a clarified document?
We adopted the bylaws.
We adopted it.
Yeah,
We adopted it, but I mean, should there be like
Motion.
some sign in a signature that it was adopted on, read and adopted on a certain date for future? I mean, where will that be if somebody wants to see it in the future?
that's a good point. I don't think it has a,
I didn't think about.
signature line. I could add it.
Yeah, I didn't think about that last month, and I'm the one that put the thing together, but I didn't think about it, but as I thought about it today, 2 things missing from it. One, because it says even in our bylaws, the seal of the urban renewal will bear a seal similar to that of the city of Trinidad, so that page should have that Trinidad seal on it.
Well, and now we're there's a lot of people don't like that circle, so we're using other ones now, and we're trying to come up with different letterhead. We got about 5 or 6 different designs, so we're looking at using one that looks a little nicer.
And I was looking, I've got most of my emails going back to almost to our origination. And I don't know if, I think I mentioned it once, but you know, that I don't know if it was, what was, or,
Nancy?
no, our director before Greg, what was the name he left?
Oh,
Jonathan?
Jonathan. Well, he developed a logo for us. It's red, it says Trinidad Urban Renewal Authority, and there's a
I
big
do
building in the
remember
back that sort of looks like the brewery. I've got it in my emails.
Well, if you want to use it, we sure could.
Well, our bylaws still say we use what,
The
you know,
city uses.
what the
Oh.
city uses. We could
Okay.
change it later, but right now our bylaws say that we're going to have a seal similar to that the city's using. So I think we need to incorporate whatever it is similar to what that would look like.
Okay.
Minor details, but maybe not. And then again, we have to have something of adoption, so it does become a document for future reference. Just my thoughts. Anybody else?
I think it's good cleanup.
Anything else we need to discuss in work session before we go to the regular meeting? If not, we'll go to the regular meeting. It is now 6:22 p.m. This is the regular meeting of the Trinidad Urban Renewal Authority, March 14, 2019. The meeting will come to order. Item number 1 is roll call, please.
Bolton?
Here.
Matei?
here.
Terrabino? Malani?
Here,
Grego?
Here. Item number 2 is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting of February the 14th. Everyone was provided with an advance copy of the minutes. Hope you had an opportunity to review. Motions are in order.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I second it.
Motion and a second. Any comments, questions? Roll call.
Bolton?
Yes?
Matei?
Yes.
Malani?
Yes.
Grego?
Yes. Item number 3, financial report.
You got an updated one?
Is
Because
this
we got
more updated than the updated one we had emailed to us, or?
The one, no, this is the one that was emailed.
Okay.
So the one that's in the packet doesn't have the tax payment from the county, and we added that and put out a different one. So that with, I think it was what, $7,900 would probably be worth to put an amended thing out there, because that's enough money.
If I may,
Please.
one of our former commissioners always wanted to see the bank statement. I don't see a need for it. I don't know if anybody else does. And I'd like to see that discontinued.
Just one less step in it all.
I'd
How
be
does
in
everybody else
agree-
feel about that?
I would be in agreement.
I would too.
Okay, so we don't have a motion yet, but when we get that motion on the floor, will you please include that?
And then I added a budget page to the financial report, so you can see, it should be the top one. It should show comparison of budget to actual.
Have we filed that with the state yet?
Yes, we're fine with this.
One of the things that I emailed you as I did a computation of numbers, one of my observations and one of my concerns is that last year we took in TIF collection of around $37,000, plus or minus. That was for 2016, collected just about $37,000, maybe, plus or minus. For the year 2017, what I calculated and everything is in the $32,000 range. I think there's about a $5,355 variation from 16 to 17. Our collections are down. And I don't know, I guess, we're gonna have to contact the assessor's office and determine why that might be, because all things being equal, I don't know why.
It should never go down.
Yeah,
It should be going up. if
yeah.
anything.
So unless my calculations are incorrect.
No, they're down.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, where the numbers would have gone, because they're not anywhere, the original estimate when we were formed, and the numbers we got was gonna be in the $36,000 range, plus or minus, so we met or exceeded it in the first year, but in the second year, we're quite a bit down. And, if $5,000 is, more than 10% of what we would normally be getting, so, that's one thing I wanna bring to everybody's attention, is that doesn't seem to be.
And you're budgeting $26,000 for 2019.
Yeah, because I think that was closer to what we thought we were gonna get.
Yeah.
The rate we were going.
Yeah, but I think it's, on the estimates, we're at 36, we did get 37 for the first year, but in the second year, we've only gotten like $32,000. So there's a shortfall, and I don't know where that would be, because I would think that it would have gone, actually, should have even exceeded 37,000 from the prior year. So we'll have to find that particular thing out. Is there anything going on with, Ashland properties?
We visited with Catherine Correll, as was reported a month or two ago to you, and she's going to come back to us and tell us whether she can do a marketing document for the $10,000.
But that $10,000 is still in place, right?
Yes. And I got the $20,000 check from Kip Hamden yesterday, but they forgot to sign it, so. So I'm gonna get a signed copy, I think Monday, there's gonna be a couple of them in town that can sign it. So the check's written, just, those kind of things happen.
Okay, all said, motions are in order, and please include the, what you just said, Commissioner Matei, would you like to make a motion?
To discontinue giving us the bank statement, the actual statement.
So motion to accept the financial statement, the financial information with future elimination of the copies of the bank statement. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion and second. Any further questions or comments? Roll call.
Bolton?
Yes.
Matei?
Yes.
Maloney?
Yes.
Grego?
Yes. Item number 4, consideration of bills.
We didn't get anything this month.
So that $20,000 that we're going to get from Kip Hamden will take care of that $12,000
Yes.
deficit and leave some money in for some future.
Well, like, for instance, we haven't received an updated bill from Malcolm Murray yet, but he's been working on the development agreement. We have, I know we've done telephone time with him. I have a meeting with him in Denver next week. So, I know we're piling up legal bills.
Okay.
We just haven't
There's
received.
bills to come,
Yeah.
we just don't know about them yet.
Right.
All right, then there are no bills to consider or pay, no motions necessary. Item number 5, petitions or communications, oral or written. Probably none. I don't know if this is a place to bring it up or not. I could bring it up, reports by commissioners, but petitions oral, I'll bring it up later, sorry. Item number 6, old business. Any old business?
No.
Item number 7, new business. New board members.
So if you want to consider Luis, you can do that, and we'll just hold off on his Leo.
And if you can't get him in this meeting, then when's the next one? It'll still be before our next meeting.
Yeah, if it'll be, I think, the 5th. So it's still, if she can't, I already emailed her and asked her if we can get it on there. I don't have a response yet, but if she can't, then we'll put it on the 5th.
Okay. So everybody has received an advance copy in the agenda. The resolution number 1515 passed by City Council last May. And it's sort of, it's an outline or some instruction of how persons that are interested in serving on boards and commissions will go forward. So we have met with Mr. Lopez, and he's going to be, he's interested, and we need to get that to the City Council. He has met the requirement of being at the meeting last month, and this month. So we need to take that forward. So I need a motion to put Mr. Lopez's name to City Council for their consideration of appointment for Mr. Lopez.
I will make that motion.
So motion, is there a second?
Second?
And
Motion
if
and
you
a
can
second.
include that and direct the chair to write the letter,
And directing Mr.
chair
Diego
making the recommendation.
to make the.
If you don't want to do it, I could write them.
No, I can do it. I'll have that to you tomorrow.
Okay. I will be out, so if you could just give that to Audra.
Okay.
Thank you.
So there's an amended motion. Is there an amended second or acceptance of that?
Second?
Motion and a second. Comments, questions, roll call?
Bolton,
Yes.
Matei,
Yes.
Maloney,
Yes.
Grego.
Yes. Item number 8, report by Executive Director.
If you, I did put a short memo in here, so it gave you some background on the facade program. I also sent all of you a copy of the first application we got. So people are noticing it.
It is, and I'm assuming everybody had a chance to review that application. It is missing a substantial amount of information to go to any kind of consideration.
And I had a suggestion, if I may. From what I understand in speaking with some of the people in town that received the letter and have requested the application form from City Hall, they're only getting the application itself and not the actual policy. And so I would highly recommend that an entire packet be made up that's the complete application plus the policy. And if we could each have one of those emailed to us, I think it would be helpful, because that notice refers people to see us. And if we could just print it off and hand it to somebody. But I think it's really important that they get the policy and procedures as well, so they know exactly what they are applying for.
All right, we can do that.
And the attachments that have to come with
Yes.
the application.
Now, and our first one, and I'm sure many more of them might come through the door with the same thing. So I think in courtesy to the first applicant, maybe we need to give him an explanation of what's lacking, and I can go do that if necessary. I mean, there's a lot of other information that's necessary beyond the application, and maybe, I've got a copy of the policy that I can print to give to you, but it needs a lot more. I mean, there's, I commend them for at least taking that. I've had a couple people that have called me with inquiry that I've given them detail, and I think their projects didn't fall within the parameters, but, they were happy to have the information. But I can go and visit the applicant and tell him what it's about and see if he's willing to provide more information on what he's going to do. Because it doesn't have a lot. I mean, no idea what's to be funded here.
And make sure that he has a copy of the policy.
Yeah. if that's okay with everybody, I can go do that as a courtesy to them, or anybody else who was there. I mean, it wouldn't be just for this individual, or somebody else, I would be more than happy, or any of us be in that position to give them that information and direction. So I can do that, just for his information. Anything else, Greg?
No, because the other thing I reported on was the thing with Ashland Properties. So that's it.
May I ask a question?
Please.
Rumor has it that the easement from the railroad has been received.
That's not accurate.
Okay, I was gonna say. if
It
that-
would be wonderful.
if
If you
that
could
was
forward that to
accurate,
me, I
you are
would be most
Superman.
appreciative.
Okay, well, that was the rumor I heard, and I wanted to find out for sure, because that would really be good news.
It would be wonderful. We have made progress, thanks to Cell Pace. We've been in contact with, and actually the mayor too has been talking to the same guy. But I think we found someone who can finally put us in contact with someone who can say, yes, I can make a decision. That's a huge thing with the railroad.
It is.
So,
Like I said, if you were able to get that easement that quickly, you are Superman.
So it's, we've got high hopes, but you always have to temper those with the railroad.
Okay, thank you.
Well, in conjunction with that, then brings me a question. Where is the Roberta development agreement negotiations at?
That's what the meeting in Denver is next week. We're negotiating the terminology in that. And I got a copy of it sometime back, I can't remember, and I did a whole bunch of markups. There was changes to terminology that needed to be in there. There were some, when we first started running into problems with the railroad and trying to figure out how to do the sewer main, which has to be done in order to do the rest of the project out there, because it's underground. You can't really do it after the street's in. At first I suggested, well, maybe we can just do a dry sewer and just set it beside the existing one. And that got put in the first draft of the agreement, and I had to take it back out because when I visited with Mike Valentine, he said, well, we can't do one of those because the new one crosses the old one in 2 or 3 locations, so there won't be anything to parallel next. The current one does some of this kind of stuff, and so if we put it through La Puerta, it's got to replace what's in there. So the problem with doing that, which we can do if we have to and start having to construct this road, the downside is the minute we get past La Puerta, we're going to tie it right back into the existing main, so you get no capacity advantage from the new one, because it'll size it right back down to 15 inches again. So the absolute best solution here is to get this easement.
Well, good luck on that.
Yeah, if we have to though, we'll construct it right to the edge of La Puerta and live with what we have until we can get a decision out of them.
Because my concern is, as it goes forward in time, is it going to skew some numbers on everything? Because, you know, it's based on a certain time period, and the TIF clock is ticking,
Yeah,
and it's going to skew a lot of numbers.
well, it's the issue with the railroad more than anything, because the TIF will not fund any of the sewer line.
No, but I mean, but in what the development is expecting to do based upon certain things, which TIF is going to be included in there,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to skew some numbers, would it not?
I don't think so, because we could potentially run into some problems with the hotel, because I'm not sure how much wastewater that throws into a sewer line. I just, somebody's, I'm sure can tell you that based on number of rooms, but that's gonna be the limitation, is that we just can't put a whole lot more wastewater in that line. It's running pretty close to capacity.
Yeah, it's a problem now.
And the stuff we ran into in the downtown area when we were trying to slip line the sewers, we're really afraid that could happen to this big one. I mean, we've got collapse lines all over the place that either are totally collapsed or dented in or partially corroded or you name it. And so we're doing point repairs all over the place, and this line is about that vintage. So,
Scary.
one of the things that we got a communication from the railroad is their concern of putting in a line and digging up the ground is that it could shift the main track by having looser soil. I don't think that's really a huge issue, but it's hard to convince the railroad of that. You know, we're gonna be, I don't know, 200 feet from the main line, maybe more than that. And, but if we can't convince them that it won't do it, I've heard things where they've said, maybe we're gonna make you put in sheet piling. Well, if we have to pound sheet piling in the ground the full length of the railroad, I hate to think what that would add to the cost. It would be enormous. So this isn't a clear-cut project yet. We have the sewer main design, but whatever the railroad throws at us, we're gonna have to negotiate.
Word for mercy. Thank you. Item number 9, reports by commissioners. Commissioner McKay? Commissioner Bowman?
I don't know if this is really a report or not, but I had the opportunity to meet and speak with the lead partner from the group that is redoing the hotel in Las Vegas. The old, is it the Castaneda?
Oh, okay.
And he was talking about all the different federal tax credits that they're working on this project with, and I mentioned to him the Opera House. And he said, I did notice that and questioned what was going on, and I told him what we had been told was the asking price, and that it had almost as many state historic credits.
It has $1 million reserved.
And he's,
At least that's what I've been told. I haven't seen a document or anything.
and that really piqued his interest. So maybe he'll be back to do something with it.
That'd be great.
Because that is exactly the type of work this group does, and they understand the ins and outs of all the tax credits. And he said, with what's going on new in town and what will be going on with Fisher's Peak Ranch, is there sufficient hotel rooms to accommodate more people? And I said, no, and a boutique hotel on Main Street would be fabulous. So I hope he tosses that around and gives it further consideration.
There was, I don't know how many of you watch CBS Sunday Morning?
I missed it.
They had a whole segment on that hotel and things happening in that area, and can't remember what the women were called at the various stops on the railroad.
The
There
Harvey
was something
Girls.
girls.
The Harvey Girls.
Harvey Girls. It was all about all that stuff. It was
Yes.
really cool.
It's really has interesting history.
Mm-hmm.
But no, those were the Harvey girls. And then I understand that he was back in town a week after that with one of his partners looking around town, so.
Neat. Yeah, it'd be fun to talk to them.
He told some great stories about what they've had to go through with that hotel restoration, and you know how they have to leave it as complete as possible, and technically the only changes they can make is to bring it up to ADA standards.
We have similar limitation on Fox. When History Colorado helps you build a building, you get to file a preservation easement on that building, which means the outside of it is pretty much untouchable, other than to do things that you mentioned ahead of time. Like, for instance, we told them that we are going to have to add an elevator onto the building, so they were okay with that. We're going to take off that solar thing that's on the front of the building. Maybe make a patio out of that that second floor thing. Looks like it might have been originally, we don't know yet. And then, there's also a plan to do some tuck pointing, but before you even do any of that kind of stuff, you gotta get permission. So, you kinda give away your soul when you, when you get those kind of grants.
And he was surprised at how many Trinidad bricks they pulled out of the courtyard.
Oh, wow, cool.
He said there were bricks from everywhere, and they had to remove all of the bricks in order to raise it for ADA requirements. And he said the majority of the bricks in that courtyard were Trinidad bricks.
Huh.
John was sitting back.
No, they put them back.
Oh, okay.
They have our name on them, shouldn't we own them?
Look at that.
Either way, that Fisher's Peak, having that deal go through, that was really a nice thing.
That's
That's unbelievable.
Somewhat monumental.
I never thought we'd get there. It was so cool.
And so quickly.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
That's it. Commissioner Valani? You have nothing. I have one thing that was, I don't know where to put it in, but here it is. Did get an invitation, Desiree?
Yeah.
Anyway, she sent an invitation and asked that it be relayed to everybody else. On March the 19th, between 3:30 and 5:30 p.m., there will be a farewell reception to Tara Marshall here at City Hall, 3rd floor. So that will be next Tuesday. Next Tuesday. So mark your calendars. Other than that, I don't have anything to report. Did we? Did much? Anything else to come before the board this evening?
I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Motion and a second. Are there no dissenting votes? We are adjourned.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna take the puncher down.
That's wrong.
Come down, I'll give you a whole bunch of